Publishers looked at Baldur's Gate 3's success and saw a cash machine. Now, BioWare legend David Gaider is warning they're about to gut future RPGs with the same soulless checklist thinking that's already destroyed countless great franchises. Now, for those that don't know, Gaider wrote Dragon Age Origins through to Inquisition, Knights of the Old Republic, and the original Baldur's Gate games. So when he says the industry is about to learn all the wrong lessons from BG3's success, it's worth paying attention. This man's watched this cycle play out more times than anyone should have to. So here's what's happening now. Baldur's Gate 3 made stupid money, proper stupid money. A turn-based RPG with reading, romance and consequences became one of the biggest games of all time. And publishers noticed, of course they did. But now comes the predictable bit. According to Gaider, every suit in the industry is having the same conversation right now. We want results like Baldur's Gate 3. The developer says, right, it will take us this much time and we'll need this much money. And the publisher's response will be, can you not just get the same results with half the resources, half the time and half the cost? And the mad thing is the developers will probably say yes. They always do. They have to really. But the answer is no. Obviously it's no. That's not how any of this works. See, this is where Gaider's experience shows he's been through this exact conversation probably multiple times. Publishers just don't understand why something succeeds. They just want to replicate the success without the effort that actually created it. After BG3 launched, publishers didn't look at Larian's 6 years of development, their early access feedback, their willingness to delay the game to get it right. They looked at the sales figures and the Steam reviews and thought, we need romance and turn-based combat, missing the point entirely. Gaider calls this the hope versus reality problem. The hope is that BG3's success shows publishers that they can trust RPG audiences, that you don't need to water everything down for mass appeal. But the reality is they'll just ask for BG3 results with half the time and budget. Which brings us to the point of this whole video, romance. Everyone's doing romance now because BG3 did romance. Just look at Warframe. Warframe's added romance. Warframe, a looter shooter about space ninjas, has added dating mechanics, probably because someone saw Astarion trending on Twitter. They even outright said that their 1999 update was inspired by Baldur's Gate 3. Like, what? And look, this isn't shitting on Warframe, not at all, but it's symptomatic of the broader problem Gaider's pointing out here. Publishers see a successful feature and immediately want to bolt it onto everything, regardless of whether it actually fits or not. Except that's not what made Baldur's Gate 3's romance work, is it? The romance in Baldur's Gate 3 works because the characters feel like people, and that's a mental concept these days, I know. Shadowheart isn't just the goth girlfriend, she's got abandonment issues stemming from religious trauma, memory problems she's actively trying to solve, and personal goals that have absolutely nothing to do with the player character. The romance grows out of that character's foundation, not the other way around. But that takes writing, proper writing, character development, narrative integration, all that expensive stuff publishers don't want to pay for. It's much easier to slap a romance flag on existing NPCs and call it a day. And when players rightfully point out that the romance feels hollow and mechanical, publishers will just act confused. But we gave them everything they wanted, romance options just like Baldur's Gate 3 had. Publishers just reverse engineer the obvious bits and miss what actually made them work in the first place. We've seen this film before and it never ends well. Remember after Skyrim came out, every RPG just seemingly had to be accessible, which became corporate speak for removing anything that might confuse someone. Streamlined just meant simplified, complex systems became just binary choices, skill trees turned into skill lines because apparently we're just idiots who can't handle more than 2 options at a time. The same thing happened after Mass Effect 2. Every action RPG needed a dialogue wheel and a morality system. It didn't matter if it fit into the game or not. Players liked choosing between Paragon and Renegade, so every character in every game became either a saint or a bastard with nothing in between. And now it's happening again with BG3. Publishers are looking at Larian's success and seeing a shopping list. Romance options, tick. Dialogue choices that pretend to matter, tick. Companion approval systems, tick. Multiple endings, tick. They'll commission their teams to implement every single feature without understanding why any of them actually worked. It's like following a recipe by just copying the ingredients but ignoring the cooking instructions. But what they're missing about Baldur's Gate 3, and this is the bit that genuinely can't be copied, is Larian's attention to detail. They spent years in early access, years of players finding problems, suggesting improvements, pointing out things that didn't actually work. Larian listened, made changes, polished the systems until they actually functioned properly. The romance isn't good because it's romance, it's good because because they gave a shit about making it feel real. The choices matter because they spent time connecting them to consequences. The companions are interesting because someone wrote them as people first and game mechanics second. And now we can look forward to features implemented by committee, designed to tick boxes rather than tell stories. And when players inevitably call it heartless and mechanical, publishers will act genuinely surprised. But we gave them romance like Baldur's Gate 3. We've got an approval system and everything. Why aren't they happy? Because you gave us the mechanical framework without understanding what actually filled it, you absolute muppets. We get something that looks vaguely familiar if we squint, but completely lacks the soul of the original. Publishers just want a laundry list of features instead of a development philosophy, and that's the difference. They see BG3's success and think they can just pick and choose which bits to replicate. We'll take the romance system, the companion mechanics, maybe try to recreate the bear scene shot for shot, but we don't need all that expensive character writing and development stuff. Players won't notice, but we do notice. We always do. The audience isn't stupid, even if they consistently treat us like we are. The really depressing part is how predictable this all is. Gaider's been in the industry long enough to see the pattern play out multiple times. Something brilliant succeeds through genuine effort and long-term investment, and publishers study it like they're reverse engineering alien technology. Then they flood the market with pale imitations that capture none of what made the original special. Remember when every game needed to try and be Dark Souls, publishers saw its success and decided every action game needed punishing difficulty and vague storytelling. Most of them forgot that Dark Souls worked because FromSoft understood exactly why those systems were difficult and what that difficulty was actually meant to achieve. Or when everything had to be a battle royale, PUBG and Fortnite made bank, so publishers started jamming battle royale modes into games that had no business containing them. Remember Call of Duty Blackout or Battlefield's short-lived attempt? Of course you don't, they were shit. And now the next big thing is romance and choice-driven narratives. Publishers are commissioning their Baldur's Gate 3 clones as we speak. They'll launch in 18 months, half finished with romance options that feel like ordering from a takeaway menu. And when these games inevitably disappoint, when players complain about shallow relationships and meaningless choices, publishers will learn the wrong lesson again. Romance doesn't sell anymore, back to multiplayer shooters with seasonal content. The cycle continues. Publishers learn the wrong lessons, developers get blamed for implementing what they were asked to implement, and players get stuck with inferior products that miss the point entirely. And meanwhile, the actual lessons from Baldur's Gate 3 continue to go unlearned. Respect your audience's intelligence, invest properly in development time and resources, let your writers write actual characters instead of walking dialogue trees. Let your designers build systems that serve the story instead of just serving monetization tactics. Just finish the bloody game before you sell it to people. But that's harder than copying surface features and hoping for the best. It requires long-term thinking, creative risk-taking, treating players like adults with functioning brains, all things the game industry is historically terrible at. We're about to see a flood of romance RPGs that understand neither romance nor RPGs. Games that have all the mechanical components of Baldur's Gate 3 with none of the heart that make them work. All of the moving parts, none of the soul, and wonder why it flops. It's because you copied the homework without understanding the assignment, mate. Anyway, thanks as always for watching. Drop me a subscribe and a like if you agree, and if you disagree, feel free to argue with me in the comments. Big love, see you in the next one.